German pilots laughed at the P-47 Thunderbolt until its 8.50s rained lead on them. In the skies over Nazi-occupied Europe, the Luftwaffe ruled with deadly precision. Their pilots were the best the world had ever seen, elite, confident, and utterly fearless. But there was one American aircraft that they mocked, dismissed as a joke. It was bulky. It was slow. It was the P-47 Thunderbolt. The Germans laughed at it. They called it a flying brick. Too slow, too heavy, too ungainly to ever pose a serious threat. But as they would soon learn, nothing could have been further from the truth. When the P-47's 8.50 caliber machine guns began to rain lead on them, the joke was over. The year was 1941. The war in Europe was already well underway, and the Allies were in desperate need of a fighter that could match the speed and firepower of the Luftwaffe's deadly fighters. The United States needed an aircraft that could not only protect bombers on long-range missions, but also stand toe-to-toe with the best German planes in the sky. Enter the P-47 Thunderbolt. Designed by Republic Aviation, the Thunderbolt wasn't about sleek lines or agility. It was about brute strength. At 15,000 pounds, it was the heaviest of the American fighters at the time. Its powerful Pratt & Whitney R-2800 engine was capable of speeds up to 430 miles per hour. Fast, yes, but not as fast as some of the competitors. What the P-47 lacked in speed, it made up for in armor and firepower. 8.50 caliber Browning machine guns mounted on its wings, a solid frame of thick metal, and a ruggedness that could absorb more damage than almost any other plane in the skies. It was built to take a hit and keep on fighting. And yet, when it first flew into combat in 1943, it didn't exactly inspire fear among the enemy. The Germans saw it as nothing more than a slow, lumbering beast. They were wrong. As the P-47 began to see combat, German pilots quickly dismissed it. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulf were sleek, nimble, and fast. The P-47 was none of those things. In the eyes of the Luftwaffe pilots, the Thunderbolt was a clumsy target. They scoffed at its size, its lack of agility, and the way it seemed to lumber through the sky. They believed that with their superior speed and maneuverability, they could easily dispatch the Americans with ease. After all, the P-47 was not built for dogfights. It was built for endurance and firepower. But in a dogfight, the Germans thought it would never stand a chance. And so they laughed. They believed the P-47 would be an easy kill. But what they didn't realize was that the P-47's design was its greatest strength. Its rugged armor could absorb hits that would have crippled lighter, faster aircraft. The massive wings and solid build allowed it to maintain its speed and effectiveness, even under fire. But the most terrifying thing about the P-47 was its guns. 8.50 caliber Browning machine guns mounted on each wing, ready to unleash a storm of lead with a single squeeze of the trigger. When a Thunderbolt went into action, it wasn't just a fighter. It was an unstoppable force. By 1944, the war in Europe had entered a critical phase. The Allies had successfully landed in Normandy, and the push through France was underway. The Luftwaffe, while still formidable, was now struggling to keep up with the overwhelming numbers of Allied planes in the skies. It was in this environment that the Thunderbolt began to shine. American fighter squadrons flying P-47s were tasked with escorting bombers deep into German-occupied territory, providing close air support and taking on the Luftwaffe head-to-head. It didn't take long for the Germans to realize their mistake. On one mission, a squadron of P-47s was tasked with protecting a group of B-17 bombers over northern France. As the American planes flew deeper into enemy airspace, they encountered a group of German fighters led by some of the Luftwaffe's best pilots. At first, the German pilots assumed they could simply dive in, tear through the bombers' defenses, and break through the American lines. But the P-47s were ready. As the German fighters approached, the Thunderbolts dove into action, opening fire with their 8.50 caliber guns. The sound of machine guns rattled through the sky as the German planes were torn apart by a hailstorm of bullets. The P-47s didn't just hold their ground. They dominated the skies. One by one, the German fighters were destroyed, shredded into pieces by the Thunderbolt's lethal firepower. And those that survived? They fled. The joke was over. But it wasn't just a single mission. Over the course of the next several months, the P-47 Thunderbolt became a relentless force in the skies over Europe. The Germans had underestimated the Thunderbolt's power, and it cost them dearly. In one of the most significant engagements of the war, a squadron of P-47s engaged a group of Messerschmitts over the Rhine River. The German pilots, eager to prove their superiority, engaged the Thunderbolts in a deadly dogfight. The P-47s, despite their reputation for being slower and less agile, turned the tables. With their incredible firepower and indestructible design, the American planes tore through the German fighters like a hot knife through butter. One by one, the German planes went down. The laughter that had once echoed in the Luftwaffe briefing rooms was replaced by the deafening silence of defeat. As the last German fighters fled the battlefield, the P-47s, battered but unbroken, continued their mission. The legend of the Thunderbolt had been forged in fire. The Thunderbolt would go on to become one of the most successful and respected aircraft of World War II. It racked up over 4,000 kills in combat and played a vital role in the Allied victory over Germany. But it wasn't just the Thunderbolt's firepower that made it legendary. It was its resilience. It could take hits from enemy aircraft and keep flying, sometimes return to base with holes in its wings and fuselage, but still capable of completing its mission. For the German pilots who once mocked it, the Thunderbolt's reputation was impossible to ignore. No longer just a joke, it had become a symbol of American resolve, strength, and determination. The story of the P-47 Thunderbolt is more than just a tale of aerial combat. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest strength lies in what others least expect. Sometimes the biggest threats aren't the ones that appear the most dangerous at first. And in the case of the P-47, it wasn't just a fighter, it was a symbol of perseverance, a symbol of survival, and a symbol of how underestimated power can turn the tide of a war. The next time you hear the roar of engines in the sky, remember this. Sometimes the biggest threats are the ones you laugh at first. And when the P-47 Thunderbolt came for the Luftwaffe, they learned that lesson the hard way. The sky is full of stories. Some are told by the victors, and some are told by the survivors.